Weekly Shonen Jump is a manga powerhouse that pumps out banger after banger. Some of the most popular series ever have graced the pages of Jump, so landing a series in Jump is seen as an impressive feat for many artists. But as we recently saw with 9 Dragons Ball Parade and many series in the past, keeping a series going in Jump is a whole separate beast. Popularity polls and sales dictate the future of a manga, and if it can't make the cut, it's out of the magazine. I love reading series when they're still in the early stages and clawing for a place in the magazine. Early chapters can literally make or break a series after all, so they're among the best chapters to gauge a new mangaka's strengths and weaknesses. We often get to see plenty of double-page spreads and action shots as the author tries to hook us into being a weekly reader. And every early chapter ends up being exciting. So I want to take this opportunity to sit down and review the 4 newest series in Jump and rate them on a scale of how likely I feel like they will be popular in the magazine. I'll be tackling the series in release order, so when they appear in the video isn't really representative of how successful I think they will be in Jump. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Blue Box is weird because it doesn't look like a Jump title. Taiki Inomata, a first-year badminton player, falls helplessly in love with his senpai and basketball star, Chinatsu Kano. It's a cute premise that gets a bit more complicated when we learn that Chinatsu's actually going to be living with Taki's family due to her family having to move. This series has one major hurdle to overcome, and that's the fact that it's a romance in Jump. While a successful romance manga in a shonen magazine isn't unheard of, it's a bit more difficult to do. Romantic stories tend to be more popular in shoujo manga, so whenever one is running in a shonen magazine, you tend to see some twists and turns to make it a little bit more palatable for the intended male audiences. So what are the twists presented in Blue Box? Sports! After Haikyuu ended, Weekly Shonen Jump was left without a popular sports series, and both Blue Box and the cancelled 9 Dragons Ball Parade stepped up to fill that void. The way that Blue Box incorporates sports into its story is fairly unique for a romance and a really good way to raise the stakes in high school sports. Taki refuses to ask out Chinatsu until he reaches the goal of the national stages for badminton and wins. But along his path there, he encounters other guys that also seem to be interested in Chinatsu, so he has to prove himself at local tournaments with things like Chinatsu's phone number on the line, where if he wins he gets nothing, but if he loses he also loses his shot with the girl of his dreams. It's a bit ridiculous when I'm explaining it to you, but every match is life or death for Taki, and it pushes forward his relationship with Chinatsu just a bit. The mutual relationship between the sport and the romance is really what makes this manga shine. Taki's desire for a relationship drives him to try harder at his sport, and as he tries harder at his sport, he grows not only as an athlete, but also as a romantic. It's a unique story, and I'm not sure how well it'll do in Jump because of that. When I originally wrote the script, I gave Blue Box a 5 out of 10 in survivability in Jump, just because of how 50-50 it seemed. But at the time of filming, Blue Box is actually getting the cover pages next week in Weekly Shonen Jump, so that's an indicator that it's pretty popular. So because of that, I'm going to be raising Blue Box's survivability score to a 6.5 out of 10. But in terms of creativity and writing, I give it an 8 out of 10. You guys should definitely go check it out. Candy Flurry exists. I don't want to say that this manga is bad, it just really hasn't done anything to capture my attention. But despite that, I believe that this series could be a long runner in Jump. In a world not too different from ours, a mysterious man began selling candy that promised wild powers. Basically, if you ate the toy candy, you would inherit a sweet-based ability. The Japanese government quickly shut down the distribution of the candy, but it was too late. Tokyo was destroyed by a rampant lollipop user, and society was left in shambles. Our heroine Minase Tsumugi also happens to be a lollipop user, but not the one who destroyed Tokyo. So she teams up with a member of the Receipt and Elite Task Force to take down the evil sweet users. Of all the series in this video, this is by far the most traditional feeling battle shonen. I like to think of it as a blend of One Piece's Devil Fruit power system and My Hero Academia's society. And while that description isn't 100% accurate, it does provide you a good idea of what the blueprints of the series are. Candy Flurry doesn't reinvent the wheel, but instead tries to hook audiences with the premise of an interesting power system. The fights are fast-paced and creative as hell, with Minase using her lollipops for various different things. animations, like batting back an enemy attack or propelling herself forward. Additionally, the enemies all use their sweets in really creative ways, like popcorn kernels being grenades, or giant macaroons being used to chomp down on your head and choke you out. But I also have to say that I'm worried about the amount of enemies in this series. The first chapter establishes that only 100 of these candies exist, but we're made to believe that sweets users are big enough of a threat to have a dedicated police force to taking them down. So either they mention that the candies continue to be produced on the black market, or the receipt's gonna take out all the villainous sweets users in a couple more chapters. Due to the traditional battle shonen nature of this story, I give it a 6.5 out of 10 with a likelihood of running in Jump. And in terms of whether you should read it or not, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a pretty sweet read. Of all the series I'm talking about today, Hunter's Guild Red Hood has the biggest chance of taking off. It mixes traditional Shonen Jump themes with new ideas to keep old fans of the magazine reading and bring in new fans for it. Our main character Velo is an ambitious young boy who lost his parents in a werewolf attack. He's determined to become a strong hunter and defend his village, but the villagers argue that he's still too young. That is until he meets Grim, a hunter sent in by the guild who looks like a small child, but has the ability to Shazam herself into an adult and become one of the thickest characters in Shonen Jump, a drawing habit Kawaguchi probably learned from Horikoshi. Together they take down the werewolf terrorizing the village, and Grim offers Velo a job as a hunter. Red Hood stands out to me not because of its story, but because of its art style. You can clearly see influences from Kawaguchi's time as an assistant with the creator of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi. The familiar designs of the My Hero Academia art, blended with a grim fairy tale look, really make this series stand out. Additionally, the werewolves have the perfect level of shonen horror designs that make them look like something out of Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen. While reading this series, I was reassured that Shonen Jump had a future, because prior to this series, nothing in the magazine looked like it could live up to the hypes of My Hero and Jujutsu Kaisen. The first chapter alone gave off Demon Slayer, My Hero, and Chainsaw Man energy, making this new world feel oddly familiar. But this new series is still very young. I'm talking 2 chapters out at the time of recording young. So it could go either way. But I feel like with the right steps, Kawaguchi can carry the same weight in the magazine as his old boss. In terms of longevity in Jump, I give the series an 8 out of 10. And in terms of you needing to read this, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It was written for fans of Jump. I want to go ahead and say that I'm a bit biased towards this last one, and as much as I love Red Hood, I want to see Neru, the Way of the Martial Artist, succeed the most. Martial arts manga has been a long-time staple of Jump, dating back to even before Dragon Ball with series like Fist of the North Star. Nothing feels more Jump than martial arts, so when I heard we were getting Neru, I was ecstatic. Not only because martial arts is a staple of Jump, but also because martial arts is a staple of my life. And seeing a sports manga about a sport that you actually do gets you excited in a different type of way. Neru grew up learning martial arts with his grandfather. The boy was always training. That is, until one day his grandfather mysteriously disappeared and he was left without a sparring partner. His lack of a partner caused him to grow bored and uninspired in life, until he ran into Akebi Haiba, a student at the Amato High School for the 18 martial arts. After a 1v1 bout with Neru, Akebi swears to fix Neru's boredom and bring him to her martial arts school. Based off of the title of the school, it seems like the series will really dive into different styles of martial arts. The art is fluid and the characters seem really fun, so I have high hopes for this manga. Except there's one small problem. The pacing and paneling in the first chapter was a bit confusing when they weren't fighting. Neru himself spent most of the first arc running around town while his friend dropped tidbits of his life. The flashbacks mixed in with present day scenes threw me off multiple times and just ended up confusing me. On premise alone, Neru has a huge chance of staying in Jump, especially because of how much it resembles early Dragon Ball. And in terms of entertainment, I would rate the first chapter a 7.5 out of 10, especially for those like me who love martial arts. And based off the optimism that the weak points of the series will improve over time, I give the series a 7 out of 10 chance of staying in Jump. But if Neru's problems don't get fixed soon, it'll be joining 9 Dragons Ball Parade in the 20 chapters or less club. So if you want to see my reaction when Neru becomes the next staple of Jump or gets prematurely axed, be sure to drop a subscription down below and hit that little notification bell icon right next to it. And let me know in the comments below, which of these 4 do you think will become a future powerhouse of Jump? My money's on Red Hood or Neru, but Blue Box could always be a surprise. Thanks again for watching until the end, and until next time, peace out guys.